Welcome to Bielefeld Sunrise Church on Sunday, October the 6th. My name is Celyn Arden, and I'm the lead minister here at Sunrise in Bielefeld, Germany, for those who are watching from outside of town and country for that matter. As to announcements, you can find them now on our new website, sunrisechurch.de, one word, sunrisechurch.de. Weekly sermons are available on Sundays from 10 a.m. and can be found on our homepage. Live streams are announced when they will be taking place, when they take place on Saturday evenings, and in-person group gatherings of all sorts, group meetings, worship, you name it, choir rehearsal, all at present in Bielefeld are also subject to prior announcement. Please join our newsletter or the WhatsApp group for updates, and there are several social media links available. You can click through directly from the website, and also the Linktree Bielefeld Sunrise, one word, Linktree Bielefeld Sunrise. From there, you find basically everything you need to have and know. Otherwise, contact me directly. Feel free to. This sermon is based on Luke 17, verses 11 to 19. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." A few years ago, I attended a conference, and at that conference, I met a pastor named Kevin, and Pastor Kevin was telling me about his mother-in-law who had passed away. She was a kind and generous person most of the time, but she could be a little judgmental. She had no patience at all for what she saw as bad manners. When Kevin and his wife were moving his mother-in-law out of her home and into an assisted living facility, they found a strange envelope. It was plain text except for one word that she had written in ink across the front of it. It said "deadbeats," and it was underlined twice. When Kevin and his wife had gotten married decades ago, it was a very traditional affair. At the reception, each guest who had RSVP'd had a place card with their name and table number on it, so they would know where to sit. When the reception was over, Kevin's mother-in-law gathered up the place cards of the people who did not show up for the wedding reception and put them in that envelope and marked it "deadbeats." I bet she would have put those 9 lepers who did not come back and say thank you to Jesus in that envelope as well. Jesus was traveling to Jerusalem near Samaria. 10 lepers found him. Most of us have heard at least a little bit about leprosy or Hansen's disease. It's been around for thousands of years. It wasn't until the 1940s that a treatment was found. It wasn't until the 1970s that a cure was found and put into widespread use. Thank God we don't make people live in leper colonies anymore. You've probably never seen such a person. A student who studied microbiology explained why leprosy is not much of a problem for us today. Today, 95% of people are immune to leprosy. The ones who are not immune can be treated with antibiotics, so you can cross leprosy off your list of worries for today. She also told me that leprosy or Hansen's disease can be passed from armadillos to humans and vice versa. We know people in rural areas and they imagine that it's not going to be a big problem, neither for them nor for us. Now, leprosy was different during the time when Jesus walked the earth. The disease that they had was probably not Hansen's disease, but something else in that range. What we do know is that it was a dreadful skin condition that had no cure. The lepers of Jesus' day were the living dead. This is because they were separated from their families and everything else that they loved. No one would touch them or come near them. They weren't just sick, they were cast out. They were ritually unclean, so they couldn't even go to worship. They rang little bells to warn others that they were coming so that people knew to get away. For some reason, I found that little detail to be especially sad. How demeaning to be reduced to wearing a bell like the ones people put on cats or cows or whatever kind of animal. Not surprisingly, the leper called out to Jesus to have mercy on them. Jesus responded by telling them to go and show themselves to the priests, quote unquote. The background information that we need to know to understand this better is from the 14th chapter of Leviticus. If someone was ever cured of leprosy, they could gain readmission to the temple and to the rest of society. They had to go to the priests to be examined and ritually purified. The priests would certify that they were clean, quote unquote. Jesus told the 10 lepers to do exactly this. Go and show yourselves to the priests. On the way to see the priests, the 10 lepers were healed. One of the 10 came back and threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And Jesus asked an obvious question. What happened to the other 9? He healed 10 and only one said, thank you. As a lecturer at university, I know that quota too well. I don't want to say that I am fulfilling Jesus-like tasks, but whenever I try to help out or to support a group of students with whatever it is about the quota to the day that people would get back to you and actually thank you afterwards. Reading this text, it's easy to take that fraction of 1/10 and apply it to our lives, as I just did. Maybe we only turn to the Lord and say thank you 10% of the times that we should, because why would it reflect that way if we ourselves would do any different? One pastor I know says that 10% is about the right ratio. When he looks out in worship any given Sunday, he only sees about 10% of the children he has baptized. He only sees about 10% of his confirmation students. And as I said, that's the kind of feedback I get from my university students. Big if, I'm lucky. It's easy to judge other people, to put them in an envelope marked deadbeats. But if we look into our own hearts, we know we are not as thankful as we should be. I know that Jesus said, judge not lest you should be judged. And yet I sometimes find myself judging others when they don't act like I think they should. We have no idea what is going on in another person's life, and yet we feel like it is okay to condemn them. Did you ever wonder why all the lepers didn't go back and say thank you? Before we judge those other 9 deadbeats, let's remember something. The other 9 did nothing wrong. They did exactly as they were told. All of them were healed. They were told to go and show themselves to the priest, and that is what they were doing. And then they went home to rejoin their families and their community. The one who turns back is different. He paused and took the time to really appreciate the blessing he had received. Then he went back to say thank you. He was blessed a second time. You might wonder about that. blessed a second time. Wasn't he just made well like the others? Yes, but Jesus tells him, your faith has made you well. He doesn't mean well like your skin is all better. The Greek word in this case is sozo, and it means saved or whole. This man is now right in his body and his spirit. He's doubly blessed. He gets the blessing of healing just like the other nine, but he also gets the blessing that comes from recognizing blessings and giving thanks. He gets wholeness and joy. In noticing and giving thanks, the original blessing is multiplied. He's blessed a second time. It takes practice to become a grateful person. One way that I have found helpful is to keep a journal and just write down the things that you are thankful for every day. Another way is to practice saying thank you to someone every day. The third way is to help others see the blessings that are all around us. A neighbor says that during the beginning of the pandemic, when we all had to stay inside our houses, her husband decided to take up bird watching. They have a big picture window in their living room. He hung all different types of bird feeders in the yard where they could see them. She was not on board for bird watching. It just didn't seem very exciting to her. The neighbor was sad to be stuck at home, and some birds eating seeds seemed all like a small consolation. Yet she was wrong. She had no idea there were so many beautiful birds that would come to their yard. So they live near a creek and a lot of trees. There were the birds that would be expected, but we had so many others in the area that I had never seen before. Pointing out God's blessing to others multiplies the blessing. I bet that 10th leper told every person he saw that Jesus had healed him. I bet he couldn't stop talking about it. He was a source of joy and faith for people around him. Giving thanks happens when you praise God in the sanctuary, when you say grace in your dining room, and even when you are in a parking lot with strangers. Not long ago, I was rushing, doing my errands. I pulled into the grocery store parking lot. When I got out of my car, there were several people just standing there, leaning on their cars. I was just about moving on, when an older woman said to me, look at the sky. I stopped and looked at the sky, and it was the brightest, closest looking rainbow I had ever seen. It was right over our heads. We all just stood there feeling amazed and blessed and grateful. It felt almost holy sharing that moment with strangers. I'm so glad that woman didn't keep quiet. I'm so glad she told me to look up so that I didn't miss the blessing of seeing a rainbow that day. Gratitude is a noble emotion. Gratitude draws us out of ourselves into something larger, brighter, and grander than we could imagine. It joins us to the font of blessing itself. It frees us from fear, releases us from anxiety, and emboldens us to do more and dare more than we'd ever imagined. Gratitude helped that 10th leper be brave and joyful enough to go back and thank Jesus. He was a Samaritan, and the Jews and the Samaritans normally had nothing to do with each other. Gratitude helped him to bridge that gap. That's exactly what the nine missed. It is not that they were deadbeats. It is not that they did anything wrong, really. It's that they didn't voice their blessings. They received physical healing, but they missed out on being made whole. Your life is full of blessings and difficulties. Which will you focus on? Question mark. Which will you shout about? Will you take the time to notice the parts of your life that have been healed? Will you turn back to say thank you in a big way? Are you willing to throw yourself at Jesus' feet and be grateful for all you have been given? Don't miss the opportunity to testify now while you have the chance. Be the 10th leper. Be the joyful child of God you were created to be. Amen.